Hi, I'm Dr. Johnny Drain, food scientist and fermentation expert, and I have the great pleasure today of talking to Dr. Kumiko Ninomiya, one of the pioneers who has helped expand our understanding of the science that underpins umami. Kumiko, you also have one of the great nicknames, Umami Mama.
I am very excited to talk with you.
Thank you for joining me today. So, Kumiko, tell me, you have this incredible nickname. Why are you called Umami Mama, and who first came up with it?
I was very lucky to work with Nobu in London and Tokyo and Cape Town, so many places. And he organized the umami dinner in different, his restaurant in different countries. He can call me Kumiko, but he would like to have a more impressive nickname for me. So he decided to call me Umami Mama.
Brilliant. So you were named by probably one of the world's most influential chefs of the last 20 years.
Yes, I am very happy.
I know that you did your PhD in understanding how umami extracts into soups and broths. Can you tell me a little bit more about this journey to umami? Why have you ended up spending your career dedicated to the pursuit of understanding umami?
I would say that when I organized the first scientific symposium on umami, which was held in Sicily in 1990, I visited many scientists in different countries around the world, and I visited London, Oxford, Paris, and New York, New Haven, Hershey, and San Francisco to meet the scientists to discuss about umami studies. So that was my first experience to organize Umami Symposium, and that was the starting point of my journey of umami.
And there you've reeled off 5 or 6 different countries all around the world. And that really speaks to the fact that umami is a global, international, basic taste.
After the discovery of umami taste receptor on our tongue, everybody believed that umami is the basic taste. So that was very happy to me, and that was very good starting point to talk about umami for not only the scientists, but also the chefs and the journalists and the nutritionists. So my world was expanded after that.
Brilliant. I like to think of it as, in Western Europe, we build our buildings with typically bricks and concrete between them. And I like to think of if the other 4 basic tastes that you mentioned were the bricks, then umami is sort of like the concrete that fills in the gaps and brings everything together.
It's a very interesting explanation. And when I work with Nobu, he said that umami is just like a bass part of the music to make harmony with other taste and aroma and make harmony and balance.
I really love that explanation as well, because I'm a very deep music lover. Tell me, so you started the Umami Symposiums back in 1990, and since then you've held many. Are there any notable stories that you have from them? You've met many of the world's greatest chefs and influential cooks. Do you have any great stories about them and their relationship with umami?
When the first symposium organized in 1990, at that time, the many scientists from outside of Japan, it's very difficult to pronounce umami correctly. Many scientists say umami. So that was very unique memory for me. And there are many scientists in the different fields, research fields like brain science or food chemistry and taste physiology. And one scientist besides me was brain scientist. And he listened to the presentation by the food scientist, and he said, "Do you know glutamate is in food?" He is an expert of glutamate in the brain, but he didn't know about glutamate in food.
Wow. And again, that speaks to this just how complex taste and flavor is. You know, it's not just a physical stimulus, but it's how our brains perceive and map that onto things like emotion and memory and context.
Yes, and in the symposium, we would like to show the pathway of transformation of the umami signal from tongue to the brain, and the brain send the signal to our stomach to promote the digestion of protein. That was very important function of glutamate. So we would like to disseminate that glutamate or umami taste is not only for the taste of the food, but also a very important physiological function in our body.
One thing, when you start looking into the science of umami, you've already talked about glutamates, and that would probably be the first thing that you learn about when you start reading about umami. But could you talk a little bit about this synergistic effect of some of these other umami giving compounds? And so this idea of where we mix maybe seafood and chicken and mushrooms, we get this amplification of the umami.
So you know that in dashi, glutamate is very highly concentrated in the dashi. And when you cook meat or fish in the dashi, the inosinate is in meat and fish. So the best combination with dashi and meat or fish makes synergistic effect to have a strong umami taste.
And so here in front of me, I have some, hopefully you can see that, katsuobushi.
Yeah,
I also have some shiitake
shiitake.
mushrooms for you, and also have here some kombu. These are the three pillars, I guess, of umami in Japanese cuisine.
And furthermore, if you use very clear and umami-rich dashi, we can find that chicken is more chicken. So fish has more fish flavor. So the umami enhance the original taste of the ingredient. That's a very important point.
So umami is helping these ingredients be more like themselves.
Yes, yes.
That's quite there's something quite deeply philosophical about that.
Yes.
It's bringing out their real character.
And the umami taste intensity of guanylate is 2.3 higher than that of inosinate. That's why we can find a very strong umami taste in dried shiitake mushroom. The important thing is that to make a combination with inosinate or guanylate to enhance the umami taste, you don't need not to high concentration of glutamate. If the concentration of glutamate is very low, but we can have inosinate, the umami, we can have a umami bomb.
Wow, so even with very small amounts of these ingredients, these compounds, we can really amplify flavor.
Yes.
And so what you're saying there is that the glutamic acid is it's an amino acid and it's a building block of life. So when you were sat next to the brain surgeon at the symposium and he was surprised that the glutamate was in food, that's because when he thinks about glutamate, he's just thinking about how cells in the brain are fabricated. So this glutamic acid is just a part of all biological or most biological organisms.
Mm-hmm. So I think that my approach to the scientific field is very unique because always I need the study on umami, glutamate. And glutamate in food science, glutamate in psychophysics, and glutamate in brain science. So my field in each different kind of research fields is very narrow, but multi-discipline research activities.
I completely agree. I mean, for me, food is this wonderful nexus, this connection of so many different facets of being a human and the things that we're interested in, whether it's agriculture or economics or neuroscience, food somehow is kind of always there, connected to all these disciplines. So let me finish off by asking you one final question, and that is, do you have a favorite dish?
Chawanmushi. Do you know chawanmushi?
I do know chawanmushi, but some people might not, so you should explain what it is.
It's a savory egg custard, and dashi is indispensable material for cooking chawanmushi. And normally, people cook chawanmushi in a very small cup. But in my case, I usually cook chawanmushi in a big bowl, very big bowl.
And so chawanmushi has a lot of umami because it's made with the eggs mixed with the dashi, right?
Yes.
For me, yeah, chawanmushi is like a big hug from your mom.
So, Johnny, when you first learn about umami?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think I first learnt about umami when I was studying chemistry as an undergraduate. And I started realizing that there were chefs like Ferran Adria and Heston Blumenthal who had this approach that they were cooking food from very good ingredients, but they were thinking about the science that underpinned it. And I started reading articles by them or reading books like Harold McGee's On Food and Cooking, and trying to understand not just the techniques that chefs use, but the science behind flavor and taste. And I think that is probably where I first heard about umami, and maybe I pronounced it umami as well. But I quickly learned that it's umami. Brilliant. Well, it really was a pleasure to speak to you, Kumiko. You've done so much, important, fascinating work in this field, and for me, it's an honor to have a little bit of your time. So thank you for this very insightful conversation.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed very much. Thank you.